Everyone expected Nelson Mandela to hate his prison guards. They tortured him, humiliated him, treated him worse than an animal. Instead, Mandela did something nobody saw coming. He started learning their language, asking about their families, treating them like human beings. By the time he left prison, his worst enemies had become his protectors. This is the story of how love conquered hate, one conversation at a time. Robben Island, 1964. Nelson Mandela arrives at the most brutal prison in South Africa. The guards who meet him aren't just doing a job. They're true believers in apartheid. To them, Mandela isn't just a prisoner. He's the enemy of everything they hold sacred. The head guard, a man named James Gregory, looks at Mandela with undisguised contempt. Gregory is an Afrikaner, descended from Dutch settlers who've been in South Africa for generations. His grandfather fought the British. His father fought black resistance movements. Now it's his turn to fight what he sees as the greatest threat to white South Africa, Nelson Mandela. The other guards share Gregory's hatred. They see Mandela as a terrorist, a communist, a man who wants to destroy their way of life. Some of them have families, children they're trying to protect from what they believe is coming, a race war that will destroy everything they know. The prison routine is designed to break Mandela's spirit. The guards wake him at 4 a.m. with kicks and shouts. They give him the worst food, the hardest work, the smallest privileges. They call him names that would make most men explode with rage. But Mandela doesn't explode. He doesn't fight back. He doesn't even seem angry. Instead, he does something that confuses everyone. He starts paying attention to the guards as individuals. The first guard Mandela focuses on is a young Afrikaner named Christo Brand. Brand is barely 18 years old, new to the job, full of the hatred he's been taught since childhood. He treats Mandela with particular cruelty, as if trying to prove himself to the older guards. But Mandela notices something others miss. Brand is nervous, uncertain, trying too hard. This isn't a man filled with natural hatred. This is a boy trying to live up to expectations. One day, as Brand is delivering Mandela's meager lunch, Mandela does something unexpected. Instead of taking the food in silence, he looks Brand in the eye and says, in perfect Afrikaans, "Thank you, Mr. Brand. How is your family today?" Brand is shocked. Prisoners aren't supposed to speak Afrikaans. They're certainly not supposed to ask personal questions. And they definitely aren't supposed to be polite. "Don't speak to me," Brand snaps. But Mandela can see the confusion in his eyes. This becomes Mandela's strategy. Every day, he greets the guards in their own language. He asks about their families, their health, their concerns. He treats them not as enemies, but as human beings who happen to be on the wrong side of history. The guards don't know how to respond. They've been trained to see Mandela as a monster. But monsters don't ask about your sick mother. Monsters don't remember your children's names. Monsters don't treat you with respect when you've shown them none. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things begin to change. James Gregory, the head guard, is the hardest to crack. He's older, more set in his ways, more committed to the apartheid system. But even he begins to notice that Mandela is different from what he expected. When Gregory's wife becomes ill, Mandela asks about her condition. When Gregory's son struggles in school, Mandela offers to help with his homework through letters. When Gregory faces a difficult decision about his career, Mandela listens without judgment and offers thoughtful advice. The breakthrough comes in 1976, during the Soweto uprising. Black students across South Africa are protesting, and the government's response is brutal. Hundreds are killed, thousands arrested. The guards at Robben Island are on edge. They expect the political prisoners to celebrate the uprising, to gloat about the government's troubles. Instead, Mandela calls for calm. He tells his fellow prisoners that violence will only lead to more violence. James Gregory watches this and realizes something. that shakes him to his core. Mandela isn't trying to destroy South Africa. He's trying to save it. That night, Gregory does something he's never done before. He sits down and really talks to Mandela. Not as a guard to a prisoner, but as one human being to another. "Why don't you hate us?" Gregory asks. "After everything we've done to you, why don't you want revenge?" Mandela's answer changes Gregory's life. "Hatred is a poison that destroys the person who carries it. I choose not to be poisoned." From that moment, Gregory begins to see Mandela not as an enemy, but as a leader. Not as a terrorist, but as a peacemaker. The transformation spreads to other guards. Christo Brand, the young guard who once tormented Mandela, begins bringing him extra food, books, small comforts. He starts asking Mandela for advice about his own life. Other guards follow suit. They begin to protect Mandela from the more brutal guards. They warn him about planned searches of his cell. They even help him communicate with the outside world. By the 1980s, something extraordinary has happened at Robben Island. The prison that was designed to break political prisoners has become a place where enemies learn to respect each other. The guards who once saw Mandela as a monster now see him as a mentor. They bring him their problems, ask for his advice, treat him with a respect that goes far beyond what's required by prison regulations. When Mandela is finally transferred to a minimum security prison in 1988, several guards request transfers so they can continue working with him. James Gregory becomes Mandela's personal guard and eventually his friend. The relationship between Mandela and his guards becomes a model for what's possible in South Africa. If a black political prisoner can earn the respect and friendship of white Afrikaner guards, then maybe the country's racial divisions aren't as permanent as everyone believes. When Mandela is released in 1990, many of his former guards are in the crowd cheering for his freedom. James Gregory is crying as he watches the man he once hated walk free. The guards who worked with Mandela become some of his strongest supporters during South Africa's transition to democracy. They testify about his character, his commitment to peace, his genuine desire for reconciliation. James Gregory writes a book about his experience with Mandela, describing how the man he was taught to hate became the person he most respected. Christo Brand becomes a close friend of the Mandela family, attending family gatherings and staying in touch for decades. But the real transformation isn't just personal, it's political. The respect that Mandela earned from his guards proves to white South Africans that he can be trusted. If Afrikaner prison guards can work with Mandela, then maybe other white South Africans can too. This becomes crucial during the negotiations that end apartheid. When white politicians worry about Mandela's intentions, they can point to the testimony of the guards who knew him best. These men, who had every reason to hate Mandela, instead vouch for his character and his commitment to peace. So let me ask you something. Who is your prison guard? Who is the person in your life who treats you badly? Who is the person who seems to hate everything you stand for? Who is the person you've written off as an enemy? Nelson Mandela could have spent 27 years hating his guards. He could have plotted revenge, nursed his anger, let bitterness consume him. Instead, he chose to see them as human beings who were trapped in the same system that trapped him. He didn't excuse their behavior. He didn't pretend their treatment of him was acceptable. But he refused to let their hatred turn him into a hateful person. The lesson is this: you can't defeat hate with more hate. Only love can do that. This doesn't mean being weak. This doesn't mean accepting abuse. This means choosing to respond to hatred with humanity, to cruelty with kindness, to division with understanding. Think about it. If Mandela had come out of prison filled with rage against his guards, what would have happened to South Africa? There would have been a race war. Millions would have died. the country would have been destroyed. Instead, because Mandela chose love over hate, South Africa became a symbol of reconciliation for the entire world. Your enemies aren't just obstacles to overcome. They might be opportunities to demonstrate the power of love. Every day, you have a choice. You can respond to hatred with more hatred, or you can do what Mandela did. See the humanity in your enemies and treat them accordingly. This doesn't guarantee they'll change. Some people are too committed to their hatred to be reached, but some people, like James Gregory and Christo Brand, are just waiting for someone to show them a different way. Remember, the person who hates you today might become your greatest ally tomorrow, but only if you're brave enough to treat them like a human being today. Look around you. The world is full of division, hatred, and conflict. People are choosing sides, building walls, seeing enemies everywhere. But you have the power to do something different. You have the power to break the cycle of hatred, one conversation at a time. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. It took Mandela 15 years to earn James Gregory's respect. But the result was worth it. Enemies became friends, and a country avoided civil war. Your kindness today might prevent a conflict tomorrow. Your humanity today might heal a division that's lasted for generations. One story, one lesson. Stay strong.